Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Melissa Goldberg here for the Husky News Network. It is that time of year again. Time to look at the year in review. This year, 1856 to 1857, has been a very eventful one indeed. The presidential election took place in 1856 and has proved that national parties are in a crisis. Democrat James Buchanan of Pennsylvania won both the majority of the popular and electoral votes, giving him the coveted office seat. But the Democrats better watch their back, because the new Republican Party, which has expressed opposition to spread slavery in our new Western territories, carried 11 out of the 16 free states, a vote clearly along sectional lines. John Fremont, their nominee, proved to our great nation that the Democrats may be facing some competition in future elections. We'll be sure to keep this in mind over the next couple of years. 1857 brought the Lecompton controversy. Now, as most of you know, both slaveholders, or as the Northerners like to call them, border ruffians, and anti-slavery settlers have been fleeing to Kansas to try and win their territory over in their favor for Congress. Two separate legislatures were created, the slaveholders in Lecompton and the anti-slavery holders in Topeka. This year, the Lecompton legislature wrote a constitution to admit Kansas into the Union as a slave state. Even though it was clearly a minority of the state that wanted this, President Buchanan supported the movement. Luckily for the majority of the state who are anti-slavery, it was rejected by Congress. The issue is expected to be voted on again by Kansas citizens next year. We're also seeing growing tension between the North and South in other areas. The controversial Dred Scott versus Sandford case took place this same year, in which Dred Scott, a slave from Missouri, who lived freely in the free state of Wisconsin for 2 years before being moved back to slave territory in Missouri, sued for his freedom. Chief Justice Roger Taney put down Mr. Scott and ends up declaring that all parts of the West are open to slavery, which makes the Missouri Compromise unconstitutional. For more on this controversial story, we turn to our reporter, Ashley Muller, who is standing live with Chief Justice Roger Taney to tell us more about this big issue. Ashley?
Hi, this is Ashley here, getting an exclusive interview with the Supreme Court Judge of the Dred Scott case, Roger Taney. Hello, Roger.
Hi, Ashley.
What made you come to the conclusion that slaves should not be citizens of the U.S.?
Well, the main document that I use in any court case under my jurisdiction is the document of our founding nation, the Constitution. Under our Constitution, white men are given the right to a fair and speedy trial, not African American slaves. Therefore, the ruling is in favor of the white men.
Okay, did you ever own slaves?
Yes. Well, I own slaves now, and also I'm from a slave state.
Okay. What do you think of the institution?
Well, it's not as horrible or cruel as of an institution that the North makes it out to be. Not only is slavery the key.
How is that?
Well, not only is slavery the key to our economy in the South, but we also allow slaves to keep, as masters, the slaves are allowed to keep, a normal life. That religion is a main factor. They get to keep their religion, and the masters really come to appreciate the whole institution. I mean, rarely do you ever see, slaves being treated poorly, and if they are, it's because of their actions, but it's rarely seen. It's not as bad as they make it out to be.
Okay, so what's the difference between a slave and a free labor worker?
Well, a slave is someone who works for a landowner, namely a master, and lives on his land and is given the support needed, while a free laborer is on their own, doing back-breaking work at high demands of, the people they work for, and I don't know, it's not as good as being a slave.
Okay, so so it's not as good as being a slave, so being free is better?
No, being a free laborer is not as good as being a slave.
Right, so how is that not as good as being a slave?
Well, it's because they're working around at high demand, so not many people slaves are higher in demand than free laborers.
So slaves have more opportunities than free labor workers?
No, but they have more work and, they're treated better.
Well, why don't they have the same opportunities?
Well, slaves are in a whole other category, and they're not even in the same social status as free labor workers. I mean, they live two separate lives.
Okay. Your decision overturned the Missouri Compromise. What was its flaw that you found in it? What was the flaw?
Yes, we ruled that Congress did not have the authority to prohibit slavery in territories. Therefore, the provisions of the Missouri Compromise were ruled unconstitutional. Um, it ruled that under the Admission Act of Missouri, blacks and even people such as mulattoes did not even don't qualify as citizens of the United States.
Okay, so what factors led to your decision?
Well, the Constitution was a main factor in my final decision, especially in the Dred Scott case.
Okay, how so?
Well, I feel like it's the basis of the courts, and so I follow it very strictly.
So why didn't you rule in favor of Dred Scott specifically?
Well, first of all, Dred Scott did not even have the right to be in court because under our Constitution, only white men are allowed to be able to go to court and have a trial.
Okay, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ashley.
Do the rest.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Mr. Tanney. We'll now switch it over to our Northern commentator, Angela Troya.
The Dred Scott case has caused the North to enter a stage of upset. However, whether you're from the North or the South, it is very apparent that this court's decision was based off of pure biased nature. As the Supreme Court, their job is to uphold and adhere to the Constitution. However, it is clear that their personal partnership influenced the court's decision to rule that African Americans are not citizens, and that the Missouri Compromise was fully unconstitutional. Now, if we look at the Chief of Justice, or the ultimate deciding factor in the court's decision, we learn that Roger B. Taney is a staunch supporter of slavery. And aside from that, 9 of the justices are pro-slavery, and 5 justices are actually slave owners themselves. With this information, it is not shocking to find that these men were able to declare that the U.S. government could not deprive any person of property without due process of law, yet they could deprive individuals of rights without due process of law. How could the Supreme Court read over the line, all men are created equally? From my understanding, whites in the South were the ones being taught to read. Slaves are human beings, and works of literature such as Uncle Tom's Cabin and Impending Christ of the South have showed us both the cruelty of slavery and also its damaging effect on the South's economy. The impact of the court's decision is detrimental. The court's decision is more than just a man losing his rights. It has set the precedent for a slave and our view of African Americans, along with disrupting the balance that the Union has strived to keep. For years, we've tried to live in harmony with half the country free and the other half slave-dependent. But sadly, after this court's irrational decision, we find it hard to maintain such unity. In order to maintain that our country be free like our founding fathers wanted it to be, we must fight the horrors and ignorance of slavery. This court decision will be sure to bring change to America. Back to you, Melissa.
Well, there you have it, folks. Our year in review. From the election in 1856, which spiced up our political influence, to the Lecompton controversy and the clear lines of slavery versus no slavery that it has uprooted, and wrapping it up with the Dred Scott case, which not only opened up slavery to all of the West, but questioned constitutional issues. It sure looks like our nation is on a divide. Are we on the edge of a civil war? Only time will tell. Until next time, this is Melissa Goldberg wishing you a great rest of the day.